Stop the music there. That's how we'll start. The rhythm of life, a powerful beat. Rhythm influences so many things. It influences how we talk, how we walk, how we work, and how we do music. Like whether we practice it or whether we perform it or whether we listen to it. So we're going to talk about rhythm today. How we speak. This is a word I didn't know about years ago. Prosody. Prosody. What is prosody? Well, it's actually how we speak and how we put sentences and words together. So here's some things about prosody. The pitch of the voice. I can probably tell you now, but I signed a contract I wasn't supposed to say. I won't even say who it is. But a television personality who would get so excited that their voice would go up like that. And so my job was to help them anchor their voice so that they weren't doing that. So you want, again, the pitch of the voice has a lot to do with how people are focused on what you have to say and the story you've got to tell. The cadence of your voice, the falling of the voice, or in the case of intonation, it's the rise and fall of the voice, which is interesting as Canadians, eh? You know, at the end we're looking for somebody to sort of say, oh, good, I'm kind of with you, eh? So we always inflect up. We don't always, but we tend to. The pausing and chunking of phrases. So you hear that in speakers all the time, right? You hear really great orators, how they pause and then how they build words together in order to get the point across. So again, the tempo has a lot to do with that. The tone of your voice. Did you do that? You know, it's like, oh my gosh, please. Or, hi everyone. I always talk to people like that with auditions, right? I said, there's people doing auditions all the time, but it's like, when you walk into the room and it's the first things you say, right? You really have like 8 seconds. You have 8 seconds to get attention. And so the tone of your voice will have a lot to do with whether people listen. And we talked about the rise and fall and the volume. The volume. When I felt people weren't listening, I would talk softer. So they'd have to lean in. I would talk like this. In a room of like 100, I would do this. I can't hear you. I said, okay. At least they asked the question. Now people heard that question. Now they started to listen. And then the length of phrase. That's similar to the pausing and chunking. Well, to understand speech is to understand rhythm. There's the slow and fast of speech. Like some people speak at about 103 words a minute. Some people speak 195 words a minute. They just speak quickly. That's how they work. And we used to think that somehow those people were more intelligent. The research says, well, it doesn't say anything. It doesn't say that the less intelligent people talk slowly. That has nothing to do with your intelligence, according to research. There was a great preacher. His name was C.L. Franklin. My son actually got me this book. Do you know anything about this guy? The prosody of many preachers in Canada and the United States were built off this guy. His last name, people might be familiar with. His daughter was a singer. Aretha, right, Aretha. In about 1961, there was a sermon that he preached. The eagle stirreth her nest. And he would preach this sermon, and people would listen. And again, it's the call and then the response. You tell us, preacher. I'm going to tell you about the eagle. So he'd have these kind of, this is how and I didn't see him preach, but I was close to him because I went to Motown, and it was just down the street where that sermon was actually recorded. Again, his recordings were sent around the States, and they picked up on this prosody of speech. Well, one of the guys that actually picked up on the prosody of his speech was Martin Luther King. And when you hear, I have a dream, man, if you listen to C.L. Franklin and you listen to Martin Luther King, you'd say, my gosh, there's a similarity in that color of tone. How about we play a little bit of, let's play C.L. Franklin. Listen to a little bit of C.L. Franklin.
It is just that there was a man who had a portrait phone. Yeah. And then he read chicken from yeah. And
anyway, you get a sense. Okay, that's him. Then Martin Luther King built this speech when he did it in 1963 at the Lincoln Memorial. He talked like this with these breaks. I have a dream, break, that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. So he had that kind of, you can hear that in the C.L. Franklin kind of way of speech. So when I help people with their speaking, sometimes with sermons, I mean, you're helping people break phrases and chunk phrases and make it so that their voice warms into that rhythm. Another one who, in 1961, had a speech that people don't forget. It was the inaugural of Kennedy. So when Kennedy spoke, my fellow Americans, and then he'd say, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. So he had that kind of resonating, kind of Bostonian kind of accent, but it's the way that phrase was put together, that prosody of phrase. We look at Shakespeare. I mean, if you had a great high school Shakespeare teacher, you probably loved Shakespeare. If you had a Shakespeare teacher that said, yeah, there's this thing called iambic pentameter, and so when it was done, two households both alike in dignity, in fair Verona where we... I had a great Shakespeare teacher, so it wasn't like that. But Shakespeare has that iambic pentameter, that short, long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short, 5 of those. And sometimes it's rhymed, and sometimes it's not rhymed. But we see that in this particular passage of Romeo and Juliet, that two households both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge break to a new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. So when I taught Shakespeare, I talked to Lister Sinclair. Do you remember Lister Sinclair? Ideas on CBC. Do you remember Lister Sinclair? I said, so Lister, how could I get kids to love Shakespeare? He said, bring in a dog and do Two Gentlemen of Verona. So the dog has no clue. And you're basically, talking Shakespeare language. Anyway, the funny thing is, it's really effective. So back to prosody of speech. In movies, there's a certain rhythm in certain, different kind of movies. One of my favorite kind of genre in movies is the film noir, and we'll play a little bit of that later. But to hear Bogart talk and the quick patter of language is really interesting. Film noir, it's kind of everything's in whites and grays and, and blacks. Also, my daughter brought this to my attention. She's a producer in New York, and she's worked with Netflix. She worked really inside Netflix. And she said, Dad, take a look at this. Watch The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Have you watched it? The script for The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is at least 10 to 15 pages longer than any other series of its kind, because the banter and the monologue and the dialogue is so quick. And we have something we can show later on. But it's really very interesting. And then, by the way, there's a really good video of two little kids just in diapers in a kitchen, and they're doing exactly that. They've picked up the patter of their parents' language, so the one little kid goes, and then the other one goes, so again, call and response, back to the preacher. Yeah, and then there's, when we as Canadians watch something that's really great, Schitt's Creek. And the comedy of Schitt's Creek and the patter of that language, it's a lot slower than the New York language. And so we hear incredible writing, we hear incredible acting, much different than the New York kind of approach, but it captures the Canadian sensibility. And it captures the speed and the way we speak in Canada, well, to some degree. But it's really effective. It's very, very effective. Schitt's Creek. Comedy. I brought this book because comedians say that this is one of the Bibles of comedy and stand-up. When you hear a great comedian, oh my gosh, they're so great. I'm ready to write a book on comedy, but there's so many great ones out there already. And I listened and listened to comedians and the way they tell jokes. And I'm a fan of Seinfeld because I know what Seinfeld did to put together an hour and 10 minutes of monologue. And he spent about a year. And in New York, there's, at least 5 major comedy clubs. And he scoot in the last 5 minutes of, Caroline's, or drop into the Comedy Cellar, and they let Seinfeld on. So Seinfeld would go in, and he'd sometimes have sheets, and he'd work off his sheets to try stuff with his audience. So he was trying to get a rhythm going with the laughter, and if it was falling flat on his face, he'd know, I'm not going to use that. So when you hear Seinfeld live, that's about a year's work. And there's other comedians that say, please don't take pictures, because don't take video, because this joke's going to take about 6 months. And I remember in one of the schools I worked in, the principal would always say, hey, Farrell, come on up and tell that joke. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, every year I tell the same joke. But people loved it because the ones who heard it before would look around the audience, and it's a joke. I won't tell the joke, but I'll give you some background. So the bottom line is, you're telling this joke, and you're contorting your face like this, and like this, and like this, and like this. And the people who know the joke are looking around the audience, and people are mimicking. They don't even know. They're in the rhythm of the joke, and they're totally engaged. And the teachers loved it. There were about 120 teachers, and they couldn't get enough of it because, they wanted to hear that joke every year with new teachers coming aboard. It was so much fun to watch, mostly the audience, not so much the storyteller. So comedy. How we move. This one. The rhythm of walking. So again, back to New York City. I go there a lot because my daughter's there. And if you're walking in New York, it's a brisk walk. I mean, unless you're on Broadway and then you're kind of stutter stepping around because people are stopping, they're window shopping, they're going into restaurants, they're coming out. That's a crazy place. Mostly it's tourists there. But generally the walk is fast. When I'm with my dog and I'm walking where I live, I'm not walking like I'm in New York. I'm stopping and I'm going. And then our trainer gave me this 10-meter lead. So we have some land, and so when I walk the dog, I can let the dog go crazy. This is an Irish Terrier. My gosh, they bounce like deer. I didn't know that. I've had Welsh Terriers, but they move like this so they can see over the grass. It's bizarre. They almost mimic the way the movement of a deer is. So the rhythm of walking. There's a beautiful YouTube video of a gentleman on a walker. I work with Parkinson's patients, and this gentleman is in his kitchen. Have you seen it? And he is moving like this very slowly, and his physical therapist says, how about we put on some music? Okay. So they put on a Don Williams song. I put it on this morning, and my gosh, have we got that Don Williams song? Let's put it on. So this is the song they put on. Good Old Boys. It's like, okay. Oh, we don't have it. Oh, I have to sing it then. No, but anyway, so then he's moving actually with a sense of beat. He's moving with a pace. Then he's moving like this, and he discards the walker. And he's moving like this. And then his nurse, his therapist, and he begin to dance in the kitchen. They dance together. And he sings along with this. And I know that happens because Dr. Bin Hu here in Calgary does that very work. And I've had the fortune to work with him, and he uses music to help people with their gait, with their length of stride, with their sense of beat, and the way they move. And it's really effective. It's really amazingly effective. The rhythm of sport. I'm a crazy baseball fan. Anytime I get tickets, I always like to sit behind home plate. So I'll get tickets. I'll go to preseason baseball and get tickets always behind home plate. We used to have season tickets when the Blue Jays actually won the World Series that one year, and they were right behind home plate. But there's a new way of batting. So the rhythm of batters used to be this way. They used to waggle their arms like this and move their arms up and down. By the way, when I go to a baseball game, I always take a scorebook. So my wife says, oh, this is going to be fun. So I'm always keeping score when I go to the game. It's like a chess game to me. Anyway, so the batter always waggles, used to do this a lot. Batters who aren't as successful still do. They do this, and then they drop their arms before the pitch is released. When the pitch is released, many times they swing and they miss. The batters that are really successful batters, there's not a lot of batters that get over an average of 300, like hitting 3 times out of 10 the ball. So what they do now is they keep their arms stationary, and they move the foot that's closest to the pitcher up. And so when the ball's released, they torque with their whole body through the ball. And without that waggling of the arms, they're better in rhythm with the sink of the ball. And it works for them. Hockey. When there's a penalty shot, they don't start at center ice, right? They start with this movement. The skater moves even back to the blue line before they pick up the puck at center ice and move in to shoot. So they create a tempo, a rhythm. Basketball on the foul line. They take as much time as they can to get that rhythm in their body. And then when they get it, then they take the foul shot. There's a really great story about a football team. A choreographer would walk by this high school football team and watch them struggle on the field. And she especially was amazed by the kickers. The kickers were, she didn't say terrible, but they weren't very successful, she said. So she said to the coach, I think I could help your team. And so she said, I can help your kickers. And the coach said, well, let me see your resume. And yeah, great. You'll be great to work with. So she worked with that team for 3 years. Have we got that Springsteen song? So this is the song she used to help the kickers. So if you can hear that. Heavy pulse, right? So it was born in, it's good. So it was like born, on the word born is where the kick happens. So it's boom, 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 born in the USA, born. So with that rhythm, they had way more success. And they also had good success with the conga. Boom! Anyway, she used that too. But she said, I always watched their feet. I always watched their hips. I watched their knees. Now, I've worked with a choreographer probably in my teaching career, easily. Once a week, a choreographer in my class from about 1986 to 2006. I worked with really great choreographers. I danced, but when I could watch dancers dance, I always just watched their feet. And I knew if they, were on. And I knew if they, even on a Broadway stage, you can just watch feet. Oh, yeah. Well, they're usually so on with watching feet. But anyway, this choreographer had great success with the football story and helping players. How we work. Yeah. Think of rhythm as out there in the world. Like when you see a tree swaying in the wind, or when you see the grass moving like so, or you look at the traffic and how it stops and goes and how it flows. In various cities, it could be, a rural setting or a major city. There's a certain sense of rhythm. That's rhythm out there. But the beat is the rhythm that's in here. Did you hear that pound there on the microphone? Boom. So the rhythm that you internalize, the cerebellum picks it up and in the brain, and it becomes part of who you are. That's why that Parkinson's patient was able to walk in tempo, because they felt that rhythm. The beat is the thing that gets you on the dance floor. The beat is the thing that sings to you, that makes you alive, right? So some things about beat. There's the heartbeat. So, which brought me to my son. He's a urologist who specializes in specific work where people need some help, say after cancer, and they have to be rebuilt and whatever, and he does that kind of work. And I phoned him last night because I wanted to make sure I'm not lying. I said, so Ryan, do you listen to music? Oh yes, Dad, you know I listen to music. When you're operating? Yeah. I said, how many in the operating room when you, let me think. Sometimes 5, 6. I said, sometimes 9. Oh yeah, sometimes 9. Like that many people. And he listens to music when he does these operations. And they're not your typical operations. I think there's maybe one doctor in Ohio that does the work he does. It's just different. And so I say that because it requires real attention. And so he listens to music, and he listens to something like, can you play that Wallen song? This is the rhythm of the music he listens to. This is interesting to me. In the operating room, when he's doing sutures or when he's doing some really crazy stuff with reconstruction. Okay, that's good. And he listens to other music, but a lot of country music. He's a guy that got a scholarship, first of all, to go to the States as a hockey-playing violinist. There's a comment. That is a bizarre combination. But he was a classically trained guy, and then he got into fiddling. And with all of that, that precision, and he could have actually done that as a job. Like he was that trained that he could be a professional violinist. But he went into this kind of thing. He's finally working it's like in medicine, sometimes you go to school for so long, right? But he loves, I said, how often do you listen to music? He said, always. Always. I have it on all the time. It was 1914 when music was first introduced to medicine in the operating room. But it was first introduced for patients, to relax patients. And now I'm surprised at the number of surgeons who actually listen to music to get a pace. And they changed the playlist as they're nearing the end of the operation because they want to move things quicker. They don't. You don't want to be listening to some drone sound and you're trying to suture somebody up, and you kind of get tired. You don't want to get tired. You want the music to move. So that is an interesting story to me about the surgery thing. And there it is here. And then there's the circadian rhythm. Are you familiar with that? Circadian rhythm? Circadian rhythm is like the daily cycles of hunger and sleep. It affects like blood pressure. Did you know like your blood pressure is lowest about 3 a.m. in the morning and it's highest when we wake? Asthma attacks. I lost a friend to an asthma attack, and it was during the daytime, and that's when most asthma attacks happen. Cells grow and repair during daylight. And if you're a night owl or if you're a morning person, that's a really interesting thing. That has to do with, to some degree, a large degree, your circadian rhythm. It's interesting, I have 5 grandkids. Oh my gosh, my daughter who is a producer has 2, and my son who is the surgeon has 3. But when you have twins, that's like, whoa, how'd that happen? So now there's 5 grandkids. And when you're under 6 years old, you are so excited in the early morning. That's when you are crazy, and that's when that circadian rhythm for young kids is alive. Some of you know that already. I see people smiling, going like this. Yeah. When you're a teenager, things perk up for you in the afternoon, which is so beautiful because in education, that's why we, coming here at 7:45 in the morning, I'm behind a school bus. So kids are starting school at ridiculous hours. Kids want to sleep in at that time. And parents say, oh, come on, what are you, lazy? No, they know they're not lazy. They're just tired because they wake up really to work in the afternoons. Now, people like me, I can look around, I guess adults, we're all adults, yeah? We have a circadian rhythm that could be AM or PM. It depends on who we are. Some people are real night owls, and some people just love to get up in the early morning. I tried something different last night. Like, I just have this circadian rhythm that, like, bang, 3 o'clock. So I did what the yoga teacher told me to do. I've done this many times. Lay in bed and just relax, from the feet up, right? Relax, relax. But my other doctor, I have this specialized doctor, he says, you know what you do, Brian? You just get up. Get up, read. So I do that. I get up and read. This is my book. By the way, if you're interested in one of these are normally $20. Just take one and then just e-transfer me $10. But I'll get up and read a book. So this is a really good book on New York. So I'll just sit and read and won't look at my watch. So I read till I'm tired. And then when I'm tired, I just put the book down, don't look at my watch, and go back to bed. And I sleep to when I get up, about 7:15, 20 after 7, because I have to let the dog out, so I have to get up. So anyway, all of that said, if I need to have a sleep, I have that short sleep in the afternoon. This particular doctor said, there was a culture that actually did get up at 4 a.m. and they would do their work, and then they would have a sleep in the afternoon, and they would continue their work later. It's not like, he said, don't fight it, because it was crazy for me. I was just like, my gosh, I'm rolling around, it's just crazy. So it's so easy for me just to get up, and I feel well rested when I do that. Let's do this one. How we do music. 2 cycles per second, 120 beats per minute. That's the one that connects to our heartbeat. There's that connect again. That heartbeat is 120 beats per minute. Here's some songs. Don't Stop, Fleetwood Mac. Have we got that one? This is 120 beats per minute, this one. Anyway, that's what it feels like. Another song is from Queen, You're My Best Friend. You got that one there? You're My Best Friend. This is 120 beats per minute. So right away, it's got you going, oh, there's something about this song. Oh. Cool, eh? This one by Billy Joel. I've got the Billy Joel one. $120 beats per minute. What song is that? In Virginia. Da, da, da. Only the good die young. Okay, that's good. Now this is really fascinating to me. When I work with singers, I do this all the time. I was just working with someone on this yesterday. I want you just to clap 1, 2, 3, 4. Do that. This time, keep it going. I want you to accent beat 1. 1. Keep going. What music up there, style, has the beat on 1? When the beat just crashes down on 1. It used to be 2 and 4, but I changed it so that everything lands on 1. It's about the 1. It's funk music. Yeah, who is that guy? James Brown. James Brown changed that whole 2/4 feel in that style of music to the, it's all about the 1. There's a guy I know in town that didn't work with him, worked with Ray Charles. And if you didn't know your music, or if you were talking, he'd do it like this. $30. You owe $30. $30. Or what is this? 10, 20, 30. Or 5, 10, 15, $15. So he'd be doing this, or even on stage. Yeah, it wasn't really nice. He said, oh my gosh, thank God he liked me. Ray Charles liked me. But that was not necessarily the case with some of the band members. I often say this too. There's one guy does this, brilliant musician, and one guy does this. Which guy does this? Heavy metal people do that. Who would do that? Say it. You can't be wrong. If you saw it, it's right. Stevie Nicks, did you say?
No, there's Stevie Wonder.
Oh yeah, Stevie Wonder. Right, Stevie Wonder does this, and Ray Charles does this. It's just the groove they get. It's really interesting, and you can feel it. Back to the clapping. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now clap with an accent on 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Okay, that music, certainly rock and roll, jazz too, right? So I'm going to a concert tonight, and sometimes it's so interesting because the person on stage gets the audience one. There's always people in the audience just, and then some people in the audience, which is great. Like, just have it your way, you know. But if something's in 2 and 4 and you're clapping 1 and 3, it just contains it. It just shrinks it. It's like the underwear is just too tight. So you just need to expand it. You know, spend a little more money. So, and the other one is this. Oh, by the way, I practiced that joke in the mirror so many times. The other one is this. Clap 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Now accent 3. Okay. So when you accent 3, it's really interesting. I learned this from a Ron Sexsmith song. And oh my gosh, I thought, my God, they're dropping the tom down on 3. And what does that do? My gosh, it's like the bar lines dissolve. It's like it opens it up. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and extends it so it doesn't, there's not a heavy pulse, but it's like pulling toffee through the phrase. It's really cool. That is such a cool thing. How are we doing? Okay, I'll finish with this. In music education, this is fascinating. If you've had 2 years of training in music, whether it's singing or playing an instrument, that's the magic number, 2 years. It will affect your brain for the rest of your life. Spatial thinking, and also your ability, like there's a certain thing, especially in your spatial think, but it has developed your brain in such a way. My daughter in New York, she had music training, and our son with the violin. If you've had 1 year, doesn't register, which is interesting. The research says that. I thought, gosh. But I always said to people, you did your grade 8 piano, then you quit. Why would you quit? They actually got something out of that by quitting even their grade 8 piano. We're going to finish with this song. Let's play the Sweet song, the second song on the list. Listen to this one. You can keep it playing. New York City, the last trip I did, you can get cheap seats like this, by the way. I was sitting in the second row. The show just came in from Boston, and it was the first night of previews. A Beautiful Noise is what it was called. And it was the music of this guy. Who is this guy?
Neil Diamond.
Neil Diamond. Now, at one point I'm going, Neil Diamond. Like some kid got me a shirt, Neil Diamond. Neil Diamond. But I got to tell you, at the very end of the show, my God, we're all on our feet. I'm in the second row. It's crazy. And by the way, if you want cheap seats, go to the day of the show, and you can get like second seats in New York. That's how you get your seats. Always get your seats the day of the show at the theater. Anyway, now everyone's up on their feet and they go, everyone, sweet Carol. And then they go, yeah. So now I look around the theater and I've got tears streaming down my face. And the people around me, all the house lights go on, and everyone, we've got tears in our eyes listening to Neil Diamond. It's so crazy. If you go to a baseball game in Boston, the 7th inning, they don't sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." They sing this. And if you go to a baseball game in New York to see the Yankees, the last thing they play, Frank Sinatra's voice comes up on the loudspeakers, and it is New York, New York. Yeah. So, how we speak, how we move, how we do our work, how we do music, all has to do with a beat, a rhythmic beat. And we know that it's all a part of the rhythm of life. Thank you.